r/TrueOffMyChest. My nephew mocked my open marriage, so I exposed his cheating. I never thought I'd be the type of person to destroy someone's life at a family barbecue, but here we are. It started 3 weeks ago when my nephew Jake, all 24 years old and full of himself, decided to make my marriage his personal comedy show. My husband Marcus and I have been in an open marriage for 6 years now, and we've never been happier. We're both 38, we communicate constantly, we have clear boundaries, and our relationship has never been stronger. But apparently, that's hilarious to some people. Jake was visiting from Phoenix where he works some finance job that he never stops bragging about. He'd been staying with my sister Linda for a week, and she'd invited the whole family over for her annual summer barbecue. About 40 people showed up, aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, the works. I was actually looking forward to it because I hadn't seen most of these people since Christmas. Marcus and I arrived around 2 in the afternoon, and things seemed normal at first. We brought Linda's famous potato salad recipe that she'd finally shared with me after years of begging, and Marcus had spent the morning perfecting his dry rub for the ribs we contributed. We were in good spirits, joking around, helping set up tables in the backyard. That's when Jake started. "Oh look, it's Aunt Sarah and Uncle Marcus," he announced loudly as we walked into the backyard. "Wonder which one of their other partners is coming later." I felt my face flush, but I tried to laugh it off. "Very funny, Jake." But he wasn't done. Throughout the afternoon, every time Marcus or I talked to someone of the opposite sex, Jake would make some snide comment. When I was chatting with my cousin Tom about his new motorcycle, Jake walked by and said, "Better be careful, Tom, you might end up as husband number 2. When Marcus was helping Linda's neighbor Jennifer carry some chairs, Jake loudly whispered to his girlfriend Meredith, "There goes Marcus, always willing to lend a hand, or whatever." The comments kept coming. During lunch, when I mentioned that Marcus and I were planning a trip to Portland next month, Jake piped up with, "Business or pleasure?" "Oh wait, with you two, is there even a difference anymore?" Everyone at the table got quiet, and I saw Linda shoot him a warning look. But the breaking point came during dessert. Linda had made her incredible 3-layer chocolate cake, and we were all gathered around the picnic tables enjoying it. Someone mentioned that Marcus and I had been married for 12 years, and what a great couple we were. Jake, who'd been drinking beer all afternoon and was clearly feeling bold, decided this was his moment to really perform. "Great couple," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "They're practically strangers living in the same house. Sarah's out with random guys half the time, and Marcus is probably on some dating app right now." He pulled out his phone and waved it around. "This is what passes for marriage these days, folks. Why even bother with vows when you can just swipe right instead?" The entire backyard went silent. I'm talking dead silent. 40 people stopped eating cake and stared. I felt humiliated, angry, and completely blindsided. This was supposed to be a fun family gathering, and Jake had turned it into his personal roast of my marriage. Marcus reached over and squeezed my hand under the table, but I could see he was furious too. His jaw was clenched in that way it gets when he's trying really hard not to lose his temper. "Jake," Linda said sharply, "that's enough." But Jake wasn't finished. He was on a roll now, clearly enjoying the attention. "I mean, come on, everyone's thinking it, right? What's the point of getting married if you're just going to act like you're single anyway? At least be honest about what you're doing instead of pretending it's some enlightened lifestyle choice." That's when something inside me snapped. Not just because of the humiliation, though that was bad enough. It was the sheer hypocrisy of it all. See, I knew something about Jake that he clearly thought was still a secret. Something I discovered completely by accident 2 months earlier. I'd been in Phoenix on a work trip. I'm a regional sales manager for a medical equipment company, and I had an evening free after my meetings wrapped up early. I decided to grab dinner at this trendy downtown restaurant that my colleague had recommended. I was sitting at the bar, waiting for a table, when I spotted Jake across the room in a corner booth. At first I was excited to see him. I was about to wave when I realized he wasn't alone. He was with a woman, and they were definitely not having a business dinner. This woman had her hand on his thigh, and Jake was feeding her bites of his dessert. They were all over each other, kissing between courses, the whole 9 yards. Now, I knew Jake had been dating Meredith for about 8 months at that point. Linda had mentioned they were getting pretty serious, and Jake had been posting photos of them together on social media constantly. So seeing him with this mystery woman was confusing. I decided not to approach them. It wasn't my business, and maybe there was some explanation I didn't understand. Maybe he and Meredith had broken up and Linda just hadn't mentioned it. Maybe this was Meredith and she just looked different than in photos. I convinced myself there was some innocent explanation. But then I saw them again the next morning. I was checking out of my hotel when Jake and the same woman walked through the lobby together, clearly having spent the night. She was wearing the same dress from dinner, and Jake was in yesterday's clothes. There was no mistaking what had happened. I was torn about what to do with this information. Jake and I weren't particularly close. He's Linda's son from her first marriage, and there's a 14-year age gap between us. We saw each other at family gatherings maybe 3 times a year. It wasn't like we had heart-to-heart conversations or anything. I ultimately decided to stay out of it. It wasn't my relationship, and I didn't want to cause drama in the family. I figured if Jake was cheating, it would probably come out on its own eventually. These things usually do. But now, sitting at this barbecue listening to Jake mock my marriage and call me and Marcus dishonest, I was seeing red. The absolute audacity of this kid lecturing me about honesty and commitment while he was sneaking around behind his girlfriend's back made my blood boil. I looked around the table at all these family members who had just watched Jake humiliate me. Linda looked mortified. My mom was staring at her hands, clearly uncomfortable. Marcus was still gripping my hand, probably trying to telepathically tell me to let it go. But I couldn't let it go. Not this time. I stood up slowly, making sure I had everyone's attention. The backyard was still quiet, with just the sound of someone's kids playing on the swing set in the distance. "You know, Jake," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the silence, "you're absolutely right about honesty being important in relationships." Jake looked pleased with himself, like he thought I was agreeing with his little speech. He sat back in his chair with this smug expression, clearly thinking he'd won whatever game he thought we were playing. I couldn't agree more, I continued. Which is why I'm sure you'll want to be completely honest with Meredith about your trip to Phoenix in April. The smug look started to fade from Jake's face. I saw confusion, then the beginning of panic as he realized where this was going. Specifically, I said, about the brunette you had dinner with at Zinc Bistro on April 15th. And breakfast with on April 16th. At the Marriott downtown. The color drained from Jake's face so fast I thought he might pass out. Meredith, who was sitting right next to him, turned to stare at him with a confused expression. What is she talking about, Jake? Meredith asked. Jake's mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. That's not. Sarah, what are you doing? Being honest, I said calmly. Like you said I should be. I was in Phoenix on business, and I happened to see you at dinner with a woman who definitely wasn't Meredith. And then I saw you both coming out of the hotel together the next morning. The backyard erupted. Not in sound, but in energy. 40 people were suddenly leaning forward, looking between Jake, Meredith, and me like we were playing tennis. This was better than any soap opera. Meredith stood up so fast she knocked over her chair. Are you kidding me right now? Jake, tell me she's lying. Jake was scrambling, looking around the table like someone might throw him a lifeline. Meredith, baby, listen to me. It wasn't what it looked like. Sarah's just trying to deflect because I called her out on her weird marriage thing. Weird marriage thing? Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice dangerously quiet. The weird marriage thing where we're completely honest with each other about everything we do. Jake, Linda said, her voice sharp as glass, is this true? Mom, I can explain. Her name was Amanda, I said, pulling out my phone. About 5 feet 6 inches, brown hair, wearing a black dress with white flowers on it. They were sitting in booth 12, and she was wearing a silver bracelet that kept catching the light when she gestured. Jake's face went ashen. The specific details hit him like a physical blow because they made it clear this wasn't some misunderstanding or case of mistaken identity. I had been there, I had seen everything, and I remembered it all clearly. Meredith started crying. Not dramatic sobbing, just tears streaming down her face as the reality of the situation sank in. 8 months, she whispered. We've been together for 8 months, and you've been cheating on me. It wasn't like that, Jake said desperately. Amanda's just a friend from college. We ran into each other and... Friends from college don't spend the night together in hotels, Jake, Meredith said, her voice getting stronger. God, how stupid do you think I am? Linda was staring at her son like she didn't recognize him. Jacob Ryan Miller, you tell me the truth right now. Did you cheat on Meredith? The use of his full name was like a slap. Jake looked around the table one more time, probably hoping for some miraculous escape, but there wasn't one. 40 pairs of eyes were boring into him, and the truth was written all over his guilty face. It was one time, he said finally, so quietly we could barely hear him. One time. I said. Jake, I saw you 2 nights in a row. And the way you were acting, this clearly wasn't some spontaneous thing. You had dinner reservations. This was planned. Meredith let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Oh my God. This is unreal. You've been lecturing your aunt about her marriage, and you can't even stay faithful to me for 8 months. Meredith, please, let me explain. Explain what? Meredith was really getting wound up now. Explain how you've been making me feel crazy for months. Remember when you started password protecting your phone and said it was because of work? Or when you suddenly had all these mysterious business trips? Or when you stopped wanting me to post photos of us together because you said it was too personal? Each accusation hit Jake like another punch. It was clear that his cheating had been going on for way longer than just the incident I'd witnessed. The Amanda situation was probably just the tip of the iceberg. And the worst part, Meredith continued, her voice rising, is that you have the nerve to sit here and mock Sarah and Marcus when they're being completely honest with each other about everything. They have more integrity in their little finger than you have in your entire body. She turned to me, tears still streaming. Sarah, I am so sorry. I should have stopped him hours ago when he started making those comments. I knew it was wrong, but I was too much of a coward to speak up. It's okay, honey, I said gently. None of this is your fault. Jake finally seemed to find his voice again. This is ridiculous. You're all acting like I committed murder. People make mistakes. Sarah, you had no right to bring this up here, in front of everyone. This was between me and Meredith. The audacity was breathtaking. Even caught red-handed, he was trying to make me the villain. You're right, I said. This should have been between you and Meredith. You should have told her about Amanda yourself instead of lying to her face while making jokes about other people's honesty. Linda stood up, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. Jacob, I think you need to leave. Now. Mom, come on. You're going to kick me out over this? You embarrassed your aunt, you lied to your girlfriend, and you cheated on someone you claimed to care about. Yes, I'm asking you to leave my house. Jake looked around the table one more time, probably hoping someone would come to his defense, but the unanimous disapproval was clear. Even the kids had stopped playing and were watching the drama unfold. Fine, he said, standing up and throwing his napkin down dramatically. But don't come crying to me when Sarah's honest marriage falls apart like everyone knows it will. That comment was his final mistake. Marcus, who had been incredibly controlled throughout this entire confrontation, finally reached his limit. You know what, Jake? Marcus stood up, and even though he's not a particularly tall guy, his presence seemed to fill the entire backyard. My wife and I have been happily married for 12 years. We communicate about everything, we trust each other completely, and we've built something together that makes us both genuinely happy. Can you say the same about any relationship you've ever had? Jake didn't answer, but Marcus wasn't done. Sarah could have handled this privately. She could have talked to Meredith later, or called you out quietly, or minded her own business completely. But you decided to make our marriage your public entertainment, so you get to deal with the public consequences of your own choices. Whatever, Jake muttered, but he was clearly deflated. All the swagger and smugness from earlier was gone, replaced by the posture of someone who knew he'd been completely outmaneuvered. Meredith was gathering up her purse and car keys. I'm leaving too, she announced. Jake, don't call me. Don't text me. Don't contact me at all. We're done. Meredith, please. No. I'm serious. It's over. She turned to address the whole table. I'm sorry everyone had to witness this. Linda, thank you for having me. The food was incredible, and I'm sorry your son ruined such a lovely afternoon. With that, she walked out, leaving Jake standing there looking lost and humiliated. Jake followed a few minutes later, but not before making one last attempt at saving face. This isn't over, Sarah. You had no right to interfere in my relationship. Your relationship was already over, I said calmly. I just sped up the timeline. After Jake left, the backyard buzzed with conversation as everyone processed what had just happened. Some people were gossiping about the drama, others were expressing sympathy for Meredith, and quite a few came over to apologize to Marcus and me for Jake's behavior earlier. My uncle Robert, who's been married to my Aunt Diane for 34 years, pulled me aside. Sarah, I want you to know that what Jake said about your marriage was completely out of line. Diane and I may not understand your arrangement, but it's not our business to judge it. You and Marcus are happy, and that's what matters. Similar conversations happened throughout the rest of the afternoon. People who had been awkwardly silent during Jake's earlier comments were now going out of their way to express their support. It was like Jake's dramatic downfall had given everyone permission to acknowledge how inappropriate his behavior had been. Linda was mortified. She pulled me aside around 5 o'clock, when things were winding down. Sarah, I am so sorry. I should have shut Jake down hours ago when he started making those comments about your marriage. I was just trying to keep the peace, but I see now that I let it go way too far. Linda, it's okay. You're not responsible for what Jake chooses to say or do. But I am responsible for what happens in my house, at my party. I let him disrespect you and Marcus, and that's not okay. She paused, looking genuinely distressed. I had no idea he was cheating on Meredith. I really thought he was maturing, getting his life together. This is just... I don't even know what to think anymore. He's 24, I said. He's still figuring things out. Maybe this will be a wake-up call. Linda shook her head. The cheating is bad enough, but the way he tried to blame you for exposing it? Like it was.